And we also have with us Mr. Sunder Advani, the President IACC WIC. In fact, he's also the Regional President of the IACC WIC, Vice Chairman of the WTTC India Initiative, also the Chairman and Managing Director of Advani Hotels and Resorts India Limited, which also owns and operates the Caravella Beach Resort Goa, formerly known as the Ramada Hotels. So it's time for me to invite on stage Mr. Sunder Advani to set the tone for the evening and also introduce the IACC for all of you. Please put your hands together and let's have an enthusiastic round of applause to welcome on stage Mr. Sunder Advani.
Good evening, all of you. Chief guest, Mr. Subhash Desai, guest of honor, Ms. Jennifer Larson, National President IACC, Mr. N. Srinivasan, past President, Ms. Dr. Kanodia, past President, Mr. Nanik Rupani, members of the Diplomatic Corps, the awardees, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, let me extend a very hearty welcome to all of you. Indo-American Chamber of Commerce was started in 1968 in Mumbai by the then Ambassador of India, Mr. Chester Bowles, and visionaries like Mr. Harish Mahendra and many others that were at Mr. H.P. Nanda, amongst others. We try to improve Indo-US relations, and we try to get programs together that help and also provide some networking between the various people that we get at these programs. We've all gathered here to honor those companies who have excelled in what they've done in the US and those that have excelled in India. I'd like to share with you some thoughts on why companies and countries excel. One basic driving force is that some companies or countries are able to produce an item or a service which is better or cheaper than any other company or country, which is the reason why they succeed. Over the years, certain countries or cities have succeeded in carving out a niche in themselves. In this context, Surat has replaced Antwerp as the world's diamond center. The IT industry has moved to Bangalore. The BPO call centers have moved from the Philippines to India. Bangladesh has become the center for apparel. China has been flooding the US market with everything from soup to nuts. We in India buy steel, furniture, and a host of items from China because they are cheaper than what we can buy them in India. The US is facing similar problems in that steel plants in the Midwest have closed down as they're not able to compete with cheap imports. The automobile industry finds it cheaper to manufacture in Mexico and other countries like India than in Detroit, which has led to a loss of jobs in the US in these areas. These are specific reasons why these changes have taken place, and they did not happen by accident. In the short period of a few minutes, I can't go into the details. In brief, I can only say that each company has found the right combination of location, raw materials, labor, and other factors which give them a competitive edge over others. That's why import and export takes place. Well, that's why globalization takes place, and everyone benefits. The relationship between the US and India has improved significantly during the last 8 years of the Obama administration, to the point that President Obama stated that this will be the defining partnership of the 21st century. After the visit of US Vice President Joe Biden to Mumbai in 2013, the goal was set to have trade between the two countries of $500 billion US. This ideal situation does not work in practice because each country tries to reduce imports to protect the local industry. Moreover, India has to provide jobs to the increasing population. If one looks at the Indian economy, a large part of our labor force is based on agriculture. Over the years, we have diversified to manufacturing and services. The services sector, which includes trade, IT, financial accounting services, hotels and restaurants, are actually 52% of our GDP, according to the World Bank. And actually, I was surprised to see that services account for 80% in the UK, and Germany 69%. So services are really the thing that we should be concentrating more on. But a few years ago, the Modi government decided to make a big push of manufacturing, and they embarked on a Made in India campaign. We have the capability to make everything in India. But in some sectors, we are at a disadvantage and should concentrate on those sectors, such as pharmaceuticals, where we have relatively comparative advantage. The medicine which controls AIDS is available in India at a fraction of the cost that it costs in the US. We were able to launch several satellites into the orbit at a much lower cost than NASA. The finance minister has just introduced the new GST, which will have a greater impact on the economy than the demonetization bill, and will help manufacturing in our country's ranking in the ease of doing business. We're now ranked 130th. We will succeed in increasing manufacturing in certain sectors, especially defense, as the US is willing to help in providing advanced technical know-how to gain access to the Indian market. But bilateral trade between the two countries will reduce to the extent that some of the items in the final product will be made in India. I was very happy to hear that the F-16s are likely to be made in India, which will be a win-win for both countries. Bilateral trade, however, will be affected if President Donald Trump succeeds in his policy to buy America and hire American. He has to provide jobs to those who have been affected by the decline of the steel industry and the automobile industry in the US. When our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, was invited to meet President Trump in Washington on 25th June, I wanted to be there. Without the timely help of our guest of honor, Ms. Jennifer Lawson from the consulate, I would not have made it. That I'm grateful for. Thank you, Jennifer. The U.S.-India Business Council had already sent me an invite to come to Washington to hear Vice President Mike Pence during the Prime Minister's visit. The Vice President praised India and the contribution that Indian Americans have made to the U.S. economy. The U.S. Ambassador to India and the industrialist S.P. Kodrej and SpiceJet Chairman Ajay Singh also spoke at the event. By the way, SpiceJet has ordered 100 Boeings, and that's the reason he was there. The senator from Hawaii was there, and she told me that Hawaii had made India, and Goa specifically, as a sister state. And this will hopefully increase the flow of tourists to Goa, and perhaps some of it will come to my hotel. The PM and his entourage were staying at the Willard Hotel in Washington. At breakfast, I met Mr. Jaishankar, the Foreign Secretary, and handed over the open envelope containing a letter addressed to the Prime Minister. I requested him to read it, as it may help the PM in his impending meeting with President Trump. Part of the letter referred to the need of the U.S. to work closely with India in containing the influence of China. No one knows what Prime Minister Modi and President Trump spoke in private. I'm not privy to that at all. President Trump in his address did say that India now had a true friend in the White House, and that the relationship between India and the United States has, quote, never been stronger, has never been better. The conflict between Prime Minister Modi's Make in India initiative and President Donald Trump's America First was cleverly handled by Prime Minister Modi when he made a statement thereafter in Washington, and I quote, India's interests lie in a strong and prosperous and successful America. In the same way, India's development and growing role at the international level are in the USA's interests. NDTV reported after that PM Narendra Modi meet Donald Trump endorses India's stand on China-Pakistan corridor. And after the PM's visit, the US has also stopped $350 million in grants to Pakistan. I was interviewed by CNBC in DC just before the Prime Minister Modi met President Trump. I would like to share this short interview with you all. John Chambers, the president of Cisco, was also interviewed by CNBC at the same time, and he spoke very highly of the experience of his company in India and was confident that the targets laid down would be achieved. Just a short video, please.
Yeah, continuing coverage here from Washington, D.C. as Prime Minister Modi gets ready to meet with President Donald Trump. Joining us now is Sunder Advani, the Regional President of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Advani, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. I understand that AmCham is going to be reaching out to U.S. lawmakers to perhaps help with more convergence between India and the U.S. on their shared interests. Take me through what is planned and what's on the agenda.
Well, actually, I am more involved in the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, and we as AmCham work together, and we're trying to get to this 500 billion U.S. Trade between India and the U.S.
How realistic a number is that?
Well, I think today, as an economist, I would say it may take a little longer than I thought originally that it would, because I think both India is trying to make things in India itself, and the U.S. also wants to make things in the U.S. So there'll be less trade between the two countries as a result of that. But I did write to President Trump that you could make everything in the U.S., but it may not be as cheap as other countries can make it, so you should concentrate on those things which you're really good at and where you have an advantage competitively. So I hope he does take note of that, and I hope that there will be more trade as a result. And I understand that he has to worry about the loss of jobs in Wisconsin and Michigan. So I did suggest to him ways how he could possibly retrain those workers so that they may not get steel plants and automobile industry back, but they certainly can train those same people to do other things. And here I think India can really do a great service, and that's what I suggest to the Prime Minister. I wrote him a letter this morning saying that you suggest that to them, that we could send a lot of our trained engineers for a short-term assignment to the United States to train the people in Detroit who have lost their jobs and other things, because our engineers speak English, and of course they're so educated and so well conversant that they can easily train people. In fact, when I was in the U.S. as an economist, we did help backward areas of the United States and Appalachia to try to help build them up from their bootstraps, and that's exactly what we did. We had them do a master plan for those areas and suggest what they were good at, and then give them some help so that they could raise themselves up from their bootstraps.
The Prime Minister has, without talking about the H-1B issue, has raised the issue of the free movement of people in the context of engineers, researchers, scientists, etc., saying that, look, both sides can work together to build on innovation and the knowledge economy. Do you believe that there is going to be an appreciation of that within the Trump administration?
I think so. I think they'll realize that the U.S. companies are benefiting a lot from the fact that all these trained engineers are coming here and working in the U.S. And of course, that's how the U.S. was built, with people coming from Europe, etc. And that's how the U.S. grew, and there was a freedom of movement, and people with knowledge and skills came here and helped the economy grow. And I think it will be appreciated, and I think that will happen sooner or later.
What continue to be the areas of concern that American investors have when talking about investing in India? You continue to be very confident that we are going to see trade grow, but there have been issues with respect to market access, for instance.
Well, I think this is a challenge. That's true, that they are having some concerns because our laws should be fixed for the next 5 or 10 years. When an investor or an entrepreneur does invest, he wants to see what's going to happen for the next 10 years so he can recoup his investment. So if he's not sure of what's going to happen next year or the year after, he will definitely think twice about investing in a country like that. Even an Indian entrepreneur like myself would be the same way. That, if I don't see what's happening 5, 10 years down, how can I be sure? Because all these, like hotels, are very long gestation projects. They take 5 years to build, and then by the time you break even, that's another 2, 3 years.
The 28% GST rate, you're not particularly happy with that?
Well, we did write to the finance minister, and fortunately he has listened to our appeal, and that he has reduced that upper
For restaurants?
No, for hotels as well.
Yes, for different kinds, but not for the luxury hotels or the 5-star hotels.
No, it is actually now based on room rates and not on the star category.
Yes.
So if you sell a room for over 7,500 rupees per day instead of 5,000, which was previously announced, it does give some hotels a breather in a way, because 7,500 in off seasons is a good rate. And so if we have to sell at Christmas time for, say, 10 or 12, 15,000 in Goa, it's okay. People will pay that 28%. That's not a problem.
Right.
But in the summer months, when we are dying for business, even though now we have 80% occupancy year-round in our hotel, which is unheard of. We were always doing about 20 or 30% in off-season. Now it's up to 60%. So it's become a year-round destination, Goa, as well.
So finally, let me end by asking you about what the expectation is from the visit and the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump today.
Well, I hope they hit it off well.
A handshake or a hug?
A hug, preferably. I think the two countries have so much in common, and both are great personalities, which I think they'll get along very well. And I think there'll be a greater bond between India and the U.S. And I think India really can contribute a lot to the U.S. And I think the U.S. will realize that there is, China and Russia trying to dominate the world, and India can really play a great player to help the U.S. and be a buffer even.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. With these few words, I'd like you to continue with the proceedings, please. Thank you.